Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. Background: the English as well as Tipu Sultan used the period 1792 to 1799 to recoup their losses. Tipu fulfilled all the terms of the treaty for Serigapattam and got his sons released. In 1796, when the Hindu ruler of the Wadayar dynasty died, Tipu refused to place Wadayar's minor son on the throne and declared himself Sultan. He also decided to avenge his humiliating defeat and the terms put by the Treaty of Serigapattam. In 1798, Lord Wellesley succeeded Sir John Shore as the new Governor General. An imperialist to the core, Wellesley was concerned about Tipu's growing friendship with the French and aimed at annihilating Tipu's independent existence or force him to submission through the system of subsidiary alliance. So the charge sheet against Tipu Sultan mentioned that he was plotting against the English with the Nizam and the Marathas, and that he had sent emissaries to Arabia, Afghanistan, Kabul, and Zaman Shah, as also to enslave France and Versailles with treasonable intent. Tipu's explanation did not satisfy Wellesley. Course of war. The war began in April 1799 and ended on May 4, 1799. With the fall of Serigapattam, Tipu was defeated first by English General Stott and then by General Harris. Arthur Wellesley, the brother of Lord Wellesley, also participated in the war. The English were again helped by the Marathas and the Nizam. The Marathas had been promised half of the territory of Tipu, and the Nizam had already signed the subsidiary alliance. Tipu laid down his life fighting bravely. His family members were interned at Vellore, and his treasures were confiscated by the English. The English chose a boy from the earlier Hindu royal family of Mysore as the Maharaja and also imposed on him the subsidiary alliance system. Mysore after Tipu. Wellesley offered Sonda and Harponili districts of Mysore kingdom to the Marathas, which the latter refused. The Nizam was given the districts of Kuti and Gurimukonda. The English took possession of Karnara, Wayanad, Coimbatore, Dwarapuram, and Serigapattam. The new state of Mysore was handed over to the old Hindu dynasty under the minor ruler Krishnaraja III, who accepted the subsidiary alliance. In 1831, William Bentinck took control of Mysore on grounds of misgovernance. In 1881, Lord Ripon restored the kingdom of its ruler. Anglo-Maratha struggle for supremacy. Rise of Marathas. As the Mughal Empire declined, one of the stoutest and hardiest of the empire's adversaries, the Marathas, got a chance to rise in power. They control a large portion of the country. Besides, they also receive tributes from areas not directly under their control. By the middle of the 18th century, they were in Lahore, thinking of becoming rulers of the North Indian Empire and in the court of the Mughals playing the role of kingmakers. Though the Third Battle of Panipat 1761, in which they were defeated by Ahmad Shah Abdali, changed the situation, they regrouped, regained their strength, and within the decade achieved a position of power in India. Bazirao I, 1720 to 40, considered greatest of all the Peshwas, had started a confederacy of prominent Maratha chiefs to manage the rapidly expanding Maratha power and to some extent appease the Kashtiyariya section of Marathas. Peshwas were Brahmins led by Senapati Dabodi. Under the arrangement of the Maratha Confederacy, each prominent family under a chief was assigned a sphere of influence which he was supposed to conquer and rule. But in the name of the Maratha king Shahu, the Maratha families which emerged prominent were the Gaekwad of Baroda, the Bonsal of Nagpur, the Holkars of Indore, the Sindhis of Gwalior, and the Peshwa of Pune. The Confederacy under Bajirao I to Madhurao I worked broadly, but the Third Battle of Panipat 1761 changed everything. The defeat at Panipat and later the death of the young Peshwa Madhurao I in 1772 weakened the control of the Peshwas over the Confederacy. Though the chiefs of the Confederacy united on ocean as against the British, more often they quarreled among themselves. Entry of the English into Maratha politics. The years between the last quarter of the 18th century and the first quarter of 19th century witnessed the Marathas and the English clashing thrice for political supremacy, with the English emerging victorious in the end. The cause of these conflicts was the inordinate ambition of the English and the divided house of the Marathas that encouraged the English to hope for success in their venture. The English and Bombay wanted to establish a government on the lines of the arrangement made by Clive in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. So it was a longed for opportunity for the English when the dissensions over a succession divided the Marathas. First Anglo Maratha War. Background. After the death of Madhurao in 1772, his brother Narayana Rao succeeded him as the fifth Peshwa. However, Narayana Rao uncle Raghurath Rao has his nephew assistant and named himself as the next Peshwa. Although he was not a legal heir, Narayana Rao's widow Gangabai gave birth to a son after her husband's death. The newborn infant was named Savai, 1 and a quarter, Madharao, and he was legally and the next Peshwa. 12 Maratha chiefs, Barabai, led by Nana Padmanabhais, made an effort to name the infant as the new Peshwa and rule for him as regents. Treaties of Surat and Purandar. Raghurath Rao, unwilling to give up his position in power, sought help from the English at Bombay and signed the Treaty of Surat in the 1775. Under the treaty, Raghurath now ceded the territories of Celeste and Basin to the English along with the portion of the revenues from Surat and the Boraj district. In return, the English were to provide Raghurath Rao with 2,500 soldiers. The British Calcutta Council on the other side of the India condemned the Treaty of the Surat 1775 and sent Clonal Upton to Pune to annul it and make a new treaty. Treaty of Purandar 1776 with the Regency re-announcing Raghunath and promising him a pension. The Bombay government rejected this and gave refuge to Raghunath. In 1777, Nana Padnavis violated his treaty with the Calcutta Council by the granting the French a port on the west coast. The English retailed by sending a force towards Pune. Course of war. The English and the Maratha armies met on the outskirts of Pune, though the Maratha army had a larger number of soldiers than the English. The latter had highly superior ammunition and cannons. However, the Maratha army was commanded by a brilliant general named Madhaji Sindhia, also known as Madhaji Sindhe. Mahadaji Sindhe lured the English army into the Ghats mountain passes near Telangau and trapped the English from all sides and attacked the English supply base at Khopali. The Marathas also utilized a scorched earth policy, burning farmland and poisoning wells. As the English began to withdraw to Telangau, the Marathas attacked, forcing them to retreat to the village of Vadgaon. Here, the English army was surrounded on all sides of the Marathas and cut off from food and water supplies. The English surrendered by mid January 1779 and signed the Treaty of Vadgaon, had forced and Bombay government to relinquish all territories acquired by the English since 1775. Treaty of Salbai 1782. End of the first phase of the struggle, Warren Hastings, the Governor General in Bengal, rejected the Treaty of Vadgaon and sent a large force of soldiers under Colonel Goddard, who captured Ahmedabad in February 1779 and Basin in December 1780. Another Bengal detachment led by Captain Popham captured Gwalior in August 1780. In February 1781, the English under General Camac finally defeated Scindia at Sipri. Scindia proposed a new treaty between Peshwa and the English, and the Treaty of Salbai was signed in May 1782. It was ratified by Hastings in June 1782 and by Padnavis in February 1783. The treaty guaranteed peace between the two sides of 20 years. The main provisions of the Treaty of Salabai were: Salsette should continue in the possession of the English. The whole of the territory conquered since the Treaty of Purandhar 1776, including Basin, should be restored to the Marathas. In Gujarat, Fateh Singh Gaikwad should remain in possession to the territory which he had before the war and should serve the Peshwa as before. The English should not offer any further support of Raghunath Rao and the Peshwa should grant him to maintain allowance. Hyder Ali should return all the territory taken from the English and the Nawab of Erkot. The English should enjoy the privileges at trade as before. The Peshwa should not support any other European nation. The Peshwa and the English should undertake that their survivor allies should remain at peace with one another. Maharajji Scindia should be the mutual guarantor for the proper observance of the terms of the treaty. Second Anglo-Maratha War 1803 to 1805. Background: the Second Anglo-Maratha was started in circumstances similar to those of the first. After Peshwa Madhavrao Narayan committed suicide in 1795, Bajirao II, the worthless son of the Raghunath Rao, became the Peshwa. Nana Padnavis, a bitter foe of Bajirao II, became the chief minister. The dissensions among the Marathas provided the English with an opportunity to intervene in Maratha affairs. The death of Nana Padnavis in 1800 gave the British an added advantage. Course of war. On April 1, 1801, the Peshwa brutally murdered the brother of Jaswant Rao, also called Yashwant Rao by some historians, Holkar Vithuji. Furious Jaswant arrayed his force against the combined armies of Scindia and Bajirao II. The turmoil continued and on October 25, 1802, Jaswant defeated the armies of the Peshwa and the Scindia decisively at Hadaspur near Pune and placed Vinayakaro, son of Amrit Rao, on the Peshwa's seat. A terrified Bajirao II fled to Basin, where on December 31, 1802, he signed a treaty with the English. Treaty of Basin 1802. Under the treaty, the Peshwa agreed to receive from the company a native infantry consisting of not less than 6,000 troops, with the usual proportions to field artillery and the European artilleryman attached to be permanently stationed in his territories. to cede to the company territories, yielding an income of rupees 26 lakh, to surrender the city of Surat, to give up all claims for Chauth on Nizam dominance, to accept the company's arbitration in all difference between him the Nizam or Gaikwad, not to keep in his employment Europeans of any nation at war with the English, and to subject his relations with other states to the control of the English, reduced of vassalage. After the Peshwa accepted the subsidiary alliance, Scindia and Bhonsle attempted to save Maratha independence. But the well prepared and organized army of the English under Arthur Wellesley defeated the combined armies of Scindia and Bhonsle and forced them to conclude separate subsidiary treaties with the English. In 1804, Jaswant Rao Holkar made an attempt to form a coalition of Indian rulers to fight against the English, but his attempt proved unsuccessful. The Marathas were defeated, reduced to British vassalage, and isolated from one another. Defeat of Bhonsle, December 17, 1803, Treaty of Devgaon. Second, defeat of Scindia, December 30, 1803, Treaty of Suranjangaon. And defeat of Holkar, 1806, Treaty of Rajpur Ghat. Significance of the Treaty of Bessin. Admittedly, the treaty was assigned by a Peshwa who lacked political authority, but the gains made by the English were immense. The provisions of keeping English troops permanently in Maratha territory was a great strategical benefit. The company already had troops in Mysore, Hyderabad, and Lucknow. The addition of Pune on the list meant that the company's troops were now more evenly spread and could be rushed to any place without much delay in times of need. Though the Treaty of Passing didn't hand over India to the company on a platter, it was a major development in the direction. The company was now well placed to expand its area of influence. In the circumstances, the observation that the treaty gave the English the key of India may be exaggerated but appears understandable. Anglo Maratha War 1817 to 1819. Background: Lord Hastings had the imperialistic design of imposing British permanency by the Charter Act of 1813, the East India Company's monopoly of trade in China, except tea, ended, and hence the company needed more markets. In Pindaris, made up of many castes and classes, were attached to Maratha armies as mercenaries. When the Marathas became weak and Pindaris could not get regular employment, as a consequence, they started plundering neighboring territories, including those of the company. The English charged the Maratha with giving shelter to the Pindaris. Pindari leaders like Amir Khan and Karim Khan surrendered while Chitu Khan fled into the jungles. The Treaty of Basin, described as the treaty with the keeper, the Peshwa, wounded the feelings of the other Maratha leaders. They saw the treaty as an absolute surrender of independence. Lord Hastings' action taken against the Pindaris were seen as a transgression of the sovereignty of the Marathas. They served to once again unite the Maratha Confederacy. A a repentant Bajirao II made a last bid in 1870 by rallying together in Maratha chiefs against the English in course of Third Anglo-Maratha War. Course of war: the Peshwa attacked the British residency at Pune. Appa Sahib of Nagpur attacked the residency at Nagpur, and the Holkar made preparations for war. But by then, the Marathas had lost almost all those elements which were needed for the growth of a power. The political and administrative conditions of all the Maratha states were confused and inefficient. After the death of Jaswantrao Holkar, Tulsibai and Holkar's favorite mistress came to the helm of affairs in Pune. Though a clever and intelligent woman, she could not administrate the state properly because she was influenced by some unworthy men such as Balram Seth and Amir Khan. The Bonsal at Nagpur and the Scindia at Gwalior had also become weak, so the English striking back vigorously succeeded in not allowing the Peshwa to exert his authority again on the Maratha Confederacy. Result: the Peshwa was defeated at Kikri, Bonsal at Sitabuldi, and Holkar at Mahidpur. Some important treaties were signed. These were June 1870 Treaty of Pune with Peshwa, November 1870 Treaty of Gwalior with Scindia, Treaty of January 1818 Treaty of Mandasar with Holkar. In June 1818, the Peshwa finally surrendered and the Maratha Confederacy was dissolved. The Peshwaship was abolished. Peshwa Bajirao became the British retainer at Bithur near Kanpur. Pratap Singh, a lineal descendant of Shivaji, was made ruler of a small principality, Satara, formed out of Peshwa's dominions. Why the Marathas lost? There were several reasons for the Marathas' defeat by the English. The main reasons were as follows. First, inept leadership. The Maratha state was a despotic in character. The personality and character of the head of the state had a great bearing on the affairs of the state. But unfortunately, the later Maratha leaders Bajirao II, Daulat Sindhya, and Jaswantrao Holkar were worthless and selfish leaders. They were no match for the English officials such as Elphinstone, John Malcolm, and Arthur Wellesley, who later led the English to conquer Napoleon. Second, defective nature of the Maratha state. The cohesion of the people of the Maratha state was not organic but artificial and accidental, and hence precarious. There was no effort, right from the days of Shivaji, for a well thought out organized communal improvement, spread of education, or unification of the people. The rise of the Maratha state was based on religio national movement. This defect of the Maratha state became glaring when they had to contend with the European power organized on the best pattern of the West. Third, loose political setup. The Maratha Empire was a loose confederation under the leadership of Chhatrapati and later the Peshwa. Powerful chiefs such as Gaikwad and the Holkar, the Scindia, and the Bonsal carved out semi independent kingdoms for themselves and paid lip service to the authority of the Peshwa. Further, there existed irreconcilable hostility between different unities of the Confederacy. The Maratha chief often took sides with one or other. The lack of cooperative spirit among the Maratha chiefs proved detrimental to the Maratha state. Fourth, inferior military system. Though full of personal powers and flavor and valor, the Marathas were inferior to the English in organization of the force, in war weapons, in disciplined action, and in effective leadership. The centrifugal tendencies of divided command accounted for such for the Maratha failures. Treachery in the ranks was instrumental in weakening the Maratha force. The adoption of the modern techniques of the warfare by the Marathas was inadequate. The Marathas neglected the paramount importance of artillery. Though the Pune government set up an artillery department, it hardly functioned effectively. Fifth, unstable economic policy. The Maratha leadership failed to evolve a stable economic policy to suit the changing needs of time. There were no industries or foreign trade openings, so the economy of the Maratha was not conducive to stable political setup. Sixth, superior English diplomacy and espionage. The English had better diplomatic skill to win allies and isolated the enemy. The disunity among the Maratha chiefs simplified the task of the English. Diplomatic superiority enabled the English to take a quick offensive against the target. Unlike the Marathas' ignorance and lack of information about their enemy, the English maintained a well knit spy system to gather knowledge of the potentialities, strength, weakness, and military methods of the foes. Seventh, progressive English outlook. The English were regenerated by the force of resistance, emancipating them from the shackles of the church. They were devoting their energies to scientific inventions, extensive ocean voyage, and acquisition of the colonies. Indians, on the other hand, were still steeped the medievalism marked by old dogmas and notions. The Maratha leaders paid very little attention to mundane matter of the state. Insistence on maintenance of traditional socio-hierarchy based on the dominance of the priestly class made the union of an empire difficult. In the end, it can be concluded that the English attacked a divided house which started crumbling after a few pushes. Conquest of Sindh. In the early 19th century, the English started to show an interest in Sindh, where they enjoyed some trade facilities authorized by a farman of the Mughal emperor in 1630. The farman provided the English with such privileges in the ports of Sindh which they enjoyed elsewhere. Rise of Talpuras Amirs. In the 18th century, prior to the rule of Talpuras Amirs, Sindh was ruled by the Kolora chief. In 1758, an English factory was built at Thata, owing to a parwana given by the Kalora prince Ghulam Shah in 1761. Ghulam Shah, on the arrival of an English resident in his court, not only ratified the earlier treaty but also excluded other Europeans from trading here. This advantage was enjoyed by the English up to 1775 when a not too friendly ruler, Sarfaraz Khan, made the English close their factory. In 1770s, a Baloch tribe called Talpuras descended, descended from the hills and settled in the plains of Sindh. They were excellent soldiers as well as adapted to hard life. They acquired great influence and soon unspurred power in the new region. In 1783, the Talpuras, under the leadership of Mir Fateh Ali Khan, established complete hold over Sindh and sent the Cholera prince into exile. The then Durrani monarch confirmed the claims of Mir Fateh Khan and ordered the latter to share the country with his brothers. Mir's brothers, popularly known as Charyar. When Mir Fateh died in 1800, the Charyar divided the kingdom among themselves, calling themselves the Amirs or Lords of Sindh. These armies extended their dominion on all sides. They conquered Amarkot from the Raja of Jodhpur, Karachi from the chief of Lewis, Shakira, Shekarpur, and Bukhar from the Afghans. Gradual ascendancy over Sindh. A common belief in the late 18th century was that Napoleon was conspiring with Tipu Sultan to invade India. In 1799, behind Lord Wellesley, effort to revive commercial relations with Sindh was the hidden aim to counteract the alliance of the French. Tipu Sultan and Shah Zaman, the Kabul monarch, negotiations were opened with Faith Ali Khan under under the influence of Tipu Sultan and the jealousy of the local traders aided by the anti-British party at Hyderabad, the Amir aided by the anti in October 1800 ordered the British against to quit Sindh. Within 10 days, the British agent Crow left Sindh and the company quietly suffered the insult. Treaty of Eternal Friendship. In June 1807, the alliance of Tilsit with Alexander I of Russia was joined by Napoleon Bonaparte. The alliance has one of its condition a combined invention of India by the land route. Now the British wanted to create a barrier between the Russia and the British India. To achieve this, Lord Minto sent three delegations under the leadership of various prominent persons to form alliance. Accordingly, Metcalfe was sent to Lahore, Elphinstone to Kabul, and Malcolm to Tehran. Sindh was visited by Nicholas Smith, who met the Amirs to conclude the defensive arrangement. After negotiations, the Amirs agreed to a treaty, their first ever treaty with the English. After professing eternal friendship, both sides agreed to excluding the French from Sindh and to exchange agents at each other's court. The treaty was renewed in 1820 with the addition of an article excluding the Americans and the resolving some border disputes on the side of Kutch after the final defeat of the Maratha Confederacy in 1818. Treaty of 1832. In 1832, William Bentinck sent Colonel Pottinger to Sindh to sign a treaty with the Amirs. The provisions of the treaty were as follows. Free passage through Sindh would be allowed to the English traders and travelers and the use of Indus of trading purposes. However, no warships would play nor any materials for war would be carried. No English merchant would settle down in the Sindh and passports would be needed for travelers. Tariff rates could be altered by the Amirs if found high and no military dues or tolls would be demanded. The Amirs would work with the Raja of Jodhpur to put down the robbers of Kutch. The old treaties were confirmed and the parties would not be jealous of each other. Lord Auckland and Sindh. Lord Auckland, who became the Governor General in 1836, looked at Sindh from the perspective of saving India from a possible Russian invasion and wished to obtain a counteracting influence over the Afghans. Ranjit Singh in Punjab was strong enough to resist Corrigan in the regard, but the Amirs were the not. Thus, the English view was that they had to consolidate their position in the Sindh as a necessary first step for their plans on Afghanistan. They got an opportunity when Ranjit Singh captured a fortunate town of Sindh. Rojan and the Pottinger was sent to Hyderabad to sign a new treaty with the Amirs. The treaty offered protection to the Amirs on the condition that the company troops would be kept in the capital at the Amir's expense, or alternatively, the English would be given suitable concessions in return. The Amirs initially refused but later agreed reluctantly to sign the treaty. In 1838, when the possibility of Ranjit Singh getting help from others was pointed out to them, the treaty permitted to the English to intervene to the disputes between the Amirs and the Sikhs, as also to establish the presence of a British resident who could go anywhere he liked, escorted by English troops. Thus, Sindh was turned into British protectorate in 1838.